This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Yes, Dom Fay here, joined by Michael Whiting, and Dane Beams is a Brisbane Lions player, Mike. Just got to get off with that.
But he's not on our show. But he's overseas, isn't he? So it's
yeah, we'll get him at one stage over the coming months, no doubt. But what a week it's been. I think when we last picked off, which was last Tuesday, we recorded our last show, and I think we ended that show saying, can't see any more surprises happening. I mean, it seemed pretty clear Beams was the main deal. Even that was starting to falter a little. Here we are a week later.
We'd have to go back and listen, but I think we thought that Beams deal would get done.
Yeah.
It'd take some time, and it did get done. But yeah, we know the little surprise packet you're alluding to in Alan Christensen, and his little surprise packet and all.
I think
senses of the term, isn't he? Like another little Mozzie squad member, perhaps, but just another great coup for Brisbane.
Well, I think I said at one stage in last week's show, or one of us said at one stage in last week's show, no, look, I think it's going to be Beams. Maybe a speculative pick from someone's rookie list. It's, when there's no other big deals in the works. And literally the next morning before the show went up, Alan Christensen said he wants to come to Queensland, and that deal got done too. Now, Terry Wallace from Trade Radio, I think we were the only club he ranked an A+ for their trade efforts this trade period. And you can definitely see it. We've brought in a potential A grader and an absolute A grader for the loss of draft picks and, yes, Joel Patfull, who was obviously a club legend, but, nearing the end of his career, we've done very well. Very well.
I mean, who am I to disagree with Terry Wallace? But I'm in the same ballpark. I'm sure we'll have to write an appraisal for AFL.com at some stage as well on each club's performance. But you have to rank Brisbane in that A bracket, because you just touched on it, an A grade in Dane Beams and a potential, maybe he's a B pluser, or who cares what label you put on him. He's a terrific player, Alan Christensen. They've both won premierships. They've, recent premierships, 2010 for Beams, 2011 for Christensen. They've been in successful cultures, and they've both come to Brisbane. To an extent, I think the players have, they've fallen in Brisbane's lap a little bit, but they've still had to get the deal done and I guess present a good club. I mean, players might want to come here initially, but once they see the facilities and the setup, they've still got to agree to it, obviously. And Brisbane's obviously got a good enough culture and a good enough setup here now that players do want to come. So while I think they fell in their lap a fraction, Brisbane were good enough to get them over the line, which we've seen with other deals haven't quite been as easy.
Yeah, absolutely not. We are sitting here now, and it seems so simple in retrospect, but it wasn't that simple throughout the past week. We were chatting Friday, Mike. I was texting you when that deadline, Collingwood released that whole thing of we're ceasing negotiations with Brisbane. And we both thought there was an element of seriousness to that, because the emphatic nature with which Collingwood said that made it sound like, well, I don't know if they're going to back down from this.
It was quite strange. Like, there's a lot of posturing involved in trading, and I guess to Collingwood's credit, if that's the term you want to use, they knocked back the picks for 5 and 25, and we're going to chat to Peter Schwab shortly, and I'm sure he'll straighten it out for us. But they knocked back 5 and 25, and eventually they got Jack Crisp as well, which was a little a bonus for them, I suppose. So maybe that sort of posturing and that hardline stance of we're not doing any more deals might have got them the extra little piece they wanted. But it still seems strange for me, and Collingwood's not the only club just to come out so emphatically and say no more dealing. I mean, it just doesn't. I think if I was a fan, I wouldn't be that thrilled if my club came out and said no more dealing. Meanwhile, the deal's still going on behind the scenes, and the deal eventually gets done. I mean, I don't think they needed to be so emphatic.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's Collingwood's prerogative and their issue, and they've been a successful club for a long time, so it's hard to be too critical. But yeah, it was surprising.
But now, obviously, it's all done and dusted. He's found his way to Brisbane, which you have to say, I mean, even if it's just been in the sense of rumours, it has been a number of years in the making. The talks about could Dane Beams end up at Brisbane. It did seem to add up on paper. Now he's here. The celebrations have begun. I imagine they'll continue for a little while yet. The question is, Mike, and this is the biggest question at the moment, round 1 next year, who's our starting midfield?
Yeah,
who's in there?
It's tough. I had a real quick think about it last night, actually, with all of the players' names, and there's probably about 12 names that we could just rattle off now. With the new guys, obviously, Beams and Christensen. We've got Daniel Rich coming back, so he's like a new player, as is Matthew Leuenberger to an extent. And the established, I guess, midfielders, Rockliff, Redden, Hanley, Zorko, Louis Taylor, a bit more half-forward, but can play midfield, Aish, May's a bit of a winger half-forward, but there's a whole, and I've probably forgotten a couple of guys there, but there's a whole truckload of, makes it very difficult, doesn't it? makes it very difficult to pick that starting midfield. You're going to have guys at half forward. You might see Daniel Rich off half back, which is where he started this year before he did his ACL. So it's a good problem for Justin Leppich, but I think there's going to be, if everyone's fit, which you don't often get, if everyone's fit, Justin Leppich is going to have some difficult decisions, which would be nice for once, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. My tip personally is going to be, I think we'll see Leuenberger, Rockcliffe, Redden and Beams. I think that will be the starting midfield round one next year. So we'll see how that unfolds. And it is obviously quite evident on paper that we have an exceptional midfield, both in terms of quality and depth now. There are more than 2 rotations of near A-grade talent in that midfield, both in terms of ruck and midfielders now, which not a lot of clubs have. Very few clubs have, in fact. So obviously a large part of the question will be, well, how are they going to work together? That'll be, I guess, somewhat seen over the summer, working with Simon Black, the new midfield coach. The other question for me is, obviously now our points of doubt exist as they have, I guess, for some time around up forward and down back, especially with Joel Patfull leaving. It leaves a big gap.
Yeah, I guess we don't want to gloss over. I know we'll sort of cut you off, Dom. We'll get to your point, but we don't want to gloss over Joel, and I know you're not, but that was while Joel had sort of decided that he was quite comfortable going to Sydney and that he wanted to at some stage of his life anyway, it's still a loss, isn't it, for Brisbane? Yeah. And what a terrific contribution that he's made. Like, he was a guy that came here probably not expecting to play much footy, and he's ended up playing, I think from memory, 170 or 180 odd games or thereabouts, and 2 BNFs. And people say, it's easier to win a best and fairest at a club that's struggling, but the years he won at Brisbane won 10 games. They were just missing finals, and I don't think they can be undersold and third again this year. So a shame to see him go, but no one will forget his contribution, that's for sure. But you're right, it does leave there's a hole to fill there.
I think I am personally, and I think many fans are going to miss that feeling of seeing the ball going towards our defence line and just thinking, Patfull's there, we're right, we're set.
He's such a good reader of the play, is what I loved, especially when he was a bit down on form the first 4 or 6 weeks of this year, but once he got his confidence back, he's so good at reading the play and leaving his man to come and influence contests and take marks and set up play for Brisbane going forward. So big loss, but no one begrudges him. And I guess there's a bit more opportunity for those younger guys now, isn't there?
Yeah, well, that's the way I think it is going to play out. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like a Jordan Burke elevated to the senior list. And I guess
you're right, Dom.
Well, that's another point of interest, and we will chat about this with Schwabby in a minute. We have quite a few senior list positions still to fill, with our first draft pick being 67.
It's interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit interesting to see, because I think, to my maths, and I could have done this wrong, but 4 senior spots still to go.
So you've probably done them. I haven't done the maths. So.
I could be wrong on that, as I said, but I think it was 4, and that's with the academy players already taken into consideration. Okay. So, I mean, there's going to obviously be...
very keen on upgrading Burke, that's for sure. So, and you're right, so there's a spot.
So if we said Burke got an upgrade, now do you think O'Brien's a chance at an upgrade with 4 to fill?
That'd be a chance, question without notice, so I'd be guessing, to be honest, and I haven't sort of done too much homework on how the club sees him, but obviously they value him, and he did very well last year. Yeah, well, and it does seem pretty obvious that we are going to take pick 67 as a live pick, otherwise we wouldn't have asked for it in the trade. So, okay, let's say we upgraded Burke and took pick 67. That's still 2 spots on the senior list. Now, yes, you don't have to fill every spot. You can have extra rookies or things like that, but I think it throws us right into the frame for any delisted free agents that come up. And 2 players' names who have been linked to the Lions are obviously Mitch Robinson from Carlton and Taylor Hunt from Geelong. Do you reckon we're a chance at either of them as a delisted free agent? Yeah, again on the spot? Yeah, again on the spot. I mean, obviously, what you've said there makes perfect sense. I mean, if there is a couple of spots, and I'm certainly not doubting that for a second. I've come in a bit unprepared, actually. I haven't done my homework there. but I think you'd have to think those guys are a chance. I mean, I'm personally, and this might come back to bite me if Mitch ends up at the club, I'm not sure if he's a great fit for Brisbane just because of his off-field issues, and I think Brisbane had enough troubles with off-field issues with when Brendan Favola came and the whole circus that. But I'm not saying that this is going to be so awkward if Peter Schwab says we're getting Mitch Robinson. Yeah, it's going to be very awkward. On field, he brings some qualities, no doubt. He's rugged and he's tough and he'll split packs, and he's probably an enforcer that Brisbane might not have in the midfield. So there's potentially a role for him, but not sure to be a great fit. Taylor Hunt, you're not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose anything picking up either guy, are you? Because they're delisted free agents. But I'm not so sure about those yet, Dom. Well, we'll see how that unfolds. We will run them by Schwabby, as we said. I think in terms of that bullocking midfielder that people saying Mitch Robinson could be,
My personal opinion is I think that's exactly why we recruited Nick Robertson. I think he's that type of player. So I'm wondering if we...
Well, I'd be much happier with Nick, but yeah.
Yeah, but I guess the point, and this was pointed out to me by a friend the other day when the Mitch Robinson rumours started picking up a little bit, was he texted me and said that there are some parallels between this and the Martin Pike situation, when Martin Pike came to the club, before the premiership years. And that
you certainly don't write players off, do you?
Yeah.
Like new culture, new home, new city... Older. He's obviously older now than, we all get older every day, but Mitch is obviously, a bit more, experience, and who knows about maturity compared to previous years. But I guess that's something the club would want to think about very, very carefully, because it's not just a player you bring into the club. There's a whole package that comes with that.
You're absolutely right on that. And I am, in typical me fashion, just going to go out and say I'm tipping us for finals. I've got it now. I genuinely think
we're going to listen back to this.
Well, I wonder if this might be the first year in a number of years that my optimism might not just be blind. I might not just be naive this time.
I'm not too sure. I mean, I haven't thought too deeply, but I still don't think Brisbane's quite in that finals frame just yet. But that's probably my personality as well, coming out there, Dom. We always come to loggerheads on these sort of issues, but I'm not quite. I mean, the midfield looks terrific. We've touched on it, and there's basically a starting midfield coming back with Leuenberger and Rich from long-term injuries, and Christensen and Beams added to what we've already got. And Jack Redden missed the last sort of 8 weeks of last season.
You're talking yourself around here?
No, I think the midfield's high quality, and I think I cut you off before when you got to your point about the young forwards and what we can expect from them. They're obviously, you'd hope they're going to get more service, which was a problem last year. They didn't get a lot of service, and they're probably going to get better quality service when you think of a Dane Beams and Pierce Hanley maybe playing more forward of the ball, and Sam Mays possibly playing wing and half forward a bit more. Like the better users of the ball. You think they're going to, the Michael Closes of the team are going to get better service. So you think they're going to get more opportunities. I'm just not quite sure yet with such an generally an inexperienced sort of key posts at both ends of the ground. I'm not quite sure whether they're quite ready, but all things being, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they snuck in. But there's a lot of good teams in that top 8.
Well, just on Sam Mays, I do feel like he's almost the forgotten midfielder or the forgotten player. You see all these articles about Brisbane's midfield now. They mention all these players that we have, but people keep forgetting Sam Mays, and I'm just putting this out. I think that's going to be
I don't think
something people are going to take back.
That's for sure. I'm with you. I think we've touched on it a number of times, the difficulties this year, and Leper threw him around in a few different positions and half back and learn a bit about defence and the rest of it. And it was a tough year for Sam. Compared to his first year, he ran around and got plenty of the ball and showed all his skills. But he'll come. I'm positive he'll come back and have a very good 2015. A little bit less pressure on him this time, and a lot more guys to take the load off. And he's a beautiful user of the ball and a exciting player. Can't wait to watch him get back to that first year form and better.
I do think, and I'm just going to, before we just wrap up and move on to Peter Schwab, I'm just going to put this out there now, just so if in a year's time it comes true, I can play this back and sound like a genius. I think if we are going to be a chance at finals next year, we're going to see a great year from either Brent Staker or Luke McGuan up forward. I think that is going to be the point of difference. If one of those two can really capitalise on, because it is going to be inexperienced down there. Daniel Merritt might be there, might be back. We'll see how that unfolds. But either way, I think one of those two players, they've both shown that they can be damaging up forward as almost a third tall or a key position type. I think one of those two could be in for a big year next year up forward with the midfield we're building. So I just want to flag that one a bit early.
I think that's a good point. Like, if Brisbane are to succeed, I think you're probably right there. One of those guys will have to make an impact. And what we've seen from Leper's game plan this year is, although Daniel Merritt wasn't a raging success forward, he did a job. He took the best defender, I suppose, and that Leper likes to have an experienced guy forward. So there's a chance for a Brent Staker or a Luke McGuan coming back from injuries. You think if Leper wants to play one experienced guy down there, those guys are definitely in the frame. So I think you're right. If they are to do well, one of those experienced guys certainly has to have an impact, because it's too much to expect Close, Freeman, McStay, etc. to kick sort of 6 or 8 goals between them every game. Yeah,
no, I think you're probably right about that. We'll see how it all unfolds. After this, though, we have the man who has had one of the busiest weeks in football history, I think, Peter Schwab, joining us on the Fancast next.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions social media activity. Lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
He's been one of the busiest men in the country the past few weeks. Must be absolutely exhausted now. Peter Schwab joins us on the Fancast. Schwab, you glad the trade period's all done and dusted?
Very quiet day today. I just sat up there until the 2 o'clock deadline, seeing all our work was done. So it was a bit of frenzied activity near the finish, but we weren't involved.
So no one came to you today with any last-minute deals about the Lions?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we were happy, and now we've moved on, and we've got our boys that we've selected in the academy and father-son, and then we've got a few picks to top up our list at the draft, but later on, obviously.
I think everyone agrees that it was a raging success, the trade period for Brisbane, getting in Dane Beams and Alan Christensen. So, Peter, we might just sort of ask you to take us through those deals. The Beams one was very highly publicised. Can you tell us from your view, I guess, how it evolved? It seemed like at last Friday, Collingwood had put the shutters up, had sort of rejected the picks 5 and 25. Can you tell us how it sort of evolved from there and how you were able to keep the communication going and get the deal over the line?
Yeah, I mean, Collingwood had set a deadline, and I guess 5 and 25 wasn't going to make the deal happen. And then what had happened with Jack Crisp? Jack had spoken to us even last week about he was happy to stay, but if we could do a deal that would get him back into Melbourne, he would prefer that option. And so once Jack sort of indicated that, then we took it to Collingwood and added it to the deal and went from there.
We did find out after Buddy Franklin went to Sydney that deal had actually been very secretly, unofficially in the works for about a year, was when they'd first approached his management. Was it true that the whole Beams thing only happened about a month ago, or can you let us in now that the deal's done that there were maybe a bit of communication, a bit of talk going around before that, and if so, how long before that?
No, look, I'm not exactly sure of the period of time, but around about a month's probably right that it was made known, and Greg Swan was the one who found that out, that Dane was keen to come back into Brisbane for family reasons, and that it was a possibility if Collingwood were prepared to deal. So, no, it wasn't a year in the making. It was probably that time. As soon as we knew that, then we started to work towards how that would occur.
Peter, there's been a bit of difference in reporting out there about Dane's deal. Can you tell us how long his deal is?
Yeah, look, Dean Warren's across the contract side of it, and I would think Dean would be best placed to answer that one. But it's, well, we'll put it this way: we expect him to play his whole career with Brisbane from here on in.
Okay,
so
right.
To me, he looks like a 6 and 8 year player. Whether he's got a contract for that long is something for Dean to answer, really. But rest assured, it's a minimum of 4 years.
You were on Trade Radio last Friday, and you sounded, and also SEN, I think, maybe one of the two, and maybe Greg Swan did another one, and you sounded almost, in a sense, almost resigned to the fact that you might not get Dane Beams. Was there a time late last week where you thought, yeah, this is actually not going to happen, or were you always secretly a bit confident that it would get over the line?
I think historically the deals tend to get done, and I felt that would be the case, but you're never super confident, particularly when the club you're dealing with gives you an ultimatum or a deadline. You are a little bit concerned that it might get stalled. But as we've seen today, pretty much every deal got done. So I think historically that's always going to be the case. But that's not to say we didn't worry that it mightn't occur.
What does it do for not only the on-field side of things, Peter, getting Dane Beams, but just that off-field side? I guess there's a bit of Greg Swan mentioned when he came to the job that he wanted to bring the swagger back to Brisbane. That was I think that was the word he used, and I guess that the competition takes Brisbane seriously again after the dramas of 12 months ago.
I think it creates excitement, and our supporters who hopefully become members, and I hope hopefully our membership gets driven by it, attendances get driven by it. I think when you create excitement with the quality of players we brought in, that it's good for people who follow the footy club. I think just generates a lot more interest. So that's the real positive from an off-field aspect. So I'd like to think that our supporters will be excited for the 2015 season. It clearly makes us better in the midfield, that's for sure. We know that we've still got some work to do in other areas of the ground, but you can't fix everything at once. So this is a great start because the game is fundamentally played with a strong midfield and a depth of midfield, and we've got that.
As for Alan Christensen, he has missed a fair bit of footy with his back injury. Can you just let us know, because obviously there was a medical done before that deal went through. Is that injury something you expect he'll have to manage the rest of his career, or do you think after this, little rehab patch, it's something that'll be past him? I guess the question is, how big a risk was that from an injury point of view for Alan Christensen?
Geelong were going to offer him an extended contract, so Geelong were confident on their side from a medical point of view, and then when we checked him out ourselves, our medical staff are confident that it won't be an issue going forward. But, like anything, you just need to be on top of it, and I'm sure Alan will be wary of that and make sure that he's always in good shape with it.
And can you tell us, Peter, when you first got an inkling that he was keen to come here? Because I think from the outside it seemed to blindside everyone that he wanted to leave Geelong and come to Brisbane.
That came in relatively late. It came in after the first day of trading and got a phone call from Tim Hazel, who's with Velocity Sports Management, and I used to coach Tim, so it was a good phone call to take because he asked me if we'd be interested in securing Alan's services. So we worked hard after we got that phone call, and he'd indicated that Brisbane or Queensland was the preferred option for him. So that left us and Gold Coast in the picture. So we worked hard and were able to get that deal done and convince Alan that Brisbane was a great opportunity for him.
Now, Peter, there's still a few list spots left open. Obviously, the club's first pick in the draft is pick 67. What's the intentions to fill those remaining spots? Do you expect to have one or two rookie elevations? Are you looking at delisted free agents? Can you give us some kind of an idea as to how that might play out over the coming months?
Yeah, we're currently on 36 listed players, so we've got a minimum of 2 spots to fill. One of those will definitely come from the draft, so it'll be a new player into the team. The other one's still being negotiated or discussed between us about whether it's an elevated rookie or a free agent, or we go another young player. So we haven't quite settled on what we'll do there. So
will you only fill 2 more spots of the list then?
I think so, but again, we've got scope to push it up by even 4, but I don't think we'll go that high. It'll be 2 or 3.
Peter, how did you go telling the rest of your recruiting staff that there'd only be one live pick at the draft after all those games they've watched and all that, that scoured the country? And
well, I told them, Michael, that it's ebbs and flows. Last year they probably had more than they should have and more than we wanted. But having said that, they did a great job in selecting the players they did last year, and Lep has been on record as saying in some ways that influx of players last year was almost 2 drafts in one.
Yeah.
But no, they've got to work hard and select a player late, or maybe 2 players late. So, and then we've also got rookie spots to fill, so they've still got work to do in that regard. We secured as academy boys and a father-son, so those boys had to be monitored and watched as well.
Yeah. Have you chatted to Dane Beams at all in the past 24 hours, or is he just overseas and those chats will happen when he gets back?
Yeah, I haven't chatted, but we've had texts. So
he's pretty relieved.
Relieved is the word he used. He's thrilled and relieved. I think they're the 2 words. So and Clay is obviously excited, to have his brother coming to the club.
Just one I remembered on Christensen, Peter. When do you expect him to be able to train? We know he's rehabbing from that back injury. Yeah,
not 100% sure, Michael. But that's something we'll work out pretty quickly. He says he's feeling pretty good, pretty fine. So I can't give you a definite date on that.
And looking forward, I know it's very early days. Obviously, this trade period's just wrapped up, but Greg Swan has indicated that there is still a considerable amount of money in the salary cap, and obviously the one glaring position still to be filled at the club is a mature key forward in some aspects. Do you now look forward to that, and is that now your next 12 months to try and find someone who might be able to fill that void?
Yeah, well, the challenge is there, for John Freeman and Michael Close in particular to grab that position, and maybe Jackson Payne. So they're, players who are currently on our list have a great opportunity to lay claim to playing that role. So I look forward to seeing that, but at the same time we'll target particular players when we're observing the next influx of young talent as to who could possibly play in a role such as that, and we'll keep our eye open for AFL lists and just monitor them as well.
Pete, I guess...
But, they're hard to get, aren't they, key forwards? So.
Very. Pete, I guess...
And that's why Tommy Boy got the offer he got, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to prize them out of other clubs, obviously. Peter, just on Daniel Merritt, he was one player that's sort of spoken about a lot during this period and is staying with the Brisbane Lions. How has the communication been with Daniel? Because it seemed that he was on the trade table, the club was keen to keep him. It was sort of a bit all over the place there.
Yeah, look, went through a few phases with Daniel, and and we came to an agreement that if he wanted to explore some options, and then he could, and he did. And then in the end, I think Daniel decided, and we decided that it was best for us and hopefully for him, and I think he feels that way, to come back into the fold and really focus on his footy for the next couple of years. I mean, he's been a long-term player for us, and he fills a pretty important role, and I hope he can just go back and be that key defender who's played so well for the club for so long. So he's looking forward to the challenge of doing that next year and the year after. So I think that's a good result for us in the end, and hopefully for Daniel.
And obviously the trade period's all wrapped up now, Peter. Have you got a few days now to relax, to kick back, maybe to have that drink with Derek Hine that you spoke about last week on the radio, or is it straight into draft now?
I might have to wait a little while for Derek. He looked, just till he gets over it, and then we'll certainly enjoy what we've done over the last 2 weeks as a group, and now get into making sure whatever picks we've got, we get them right, and then the other challenge is somewhat challenge, but the other responsibility is settling all the new players into the footy club back into Brisbane and making sure all that goes well.
And just before we let you go, I did put out on Twitter that we were getting you on the show and ask for any questions. And someone has tweeted through and said that apparently you've blocked them on Twitter by the name of James North, and he says he has no clue why you blocked him, but wanted us to ask if you could unblock him. Apparently you might have accidentally blocked him.
I'll tell Jason I did. I wouldn't have done it on purpose. Knowing me, he's not great on Twitter.
Well, can we let him know?
Maybe Steele did it. I asked Steele to do something for me on Twitter before.
Right, well, you've passed the blame there.
Tell Jason not to worry. Tell him I haven't banned him. I don't know why.
That was a nice hand pass, Schwabby, straight to Steele.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for joining us today on the show. We're so stoked with the work you've done over the past few weeks, and hopefully you get to enjoy it now for a little bit.
Good on you guys. Thanks for your interest.
Just before we wrap up on the Fancast, and we will be back relatively soon with maybe some special editions, maybe Greg Swan, Dane Beams, things like that. We'll certainly ask for them, see what we can get back. Before we go though, Mike, we have to listen back to our season predictions. Haven't done that yet.
This is nervous for us, isn't it? Because we have not listened to this since we recorded
it
early this year, so we could be about to make it look very stupid.
We'll see what happens. Let's just play them off. Who do you think is going to take out the 2014 Premiership, Mike?
I'm going Fremantle. I think they were there last year and knocking on the door, and I think the old theory of being there once and coming back and getting it a second time. So I'll stick with Freo, I think. What about you, Dom?
It's a bit from left field. I reckon North Melbourne. Wow, okay.
You were closer than me.
Somehow I ended up closer, which at the start you would not have picked that North Melbourne would be closer than Freo. All right.
Preliminary final for Dom, and my guys were out in the second week, so one up there.
All right, let's move on to the next prediction. Who do you think for the Brownlow?
Well, huge shock here. I'm going with Gary Ablett, but I'm sure you'll be going a little bit more risky than that.
A little bit. I'm going Nat Fyfe.
It's an astute bet, I think.
Did end up being the case, although the suspension obviously played a role there. But
it was both what if for us.
I ended up a little closer than you.
Yeah, I think you did, yeah.
But obviously my tip got suspended, yours got injured. So
well, yours didn't end up that close. He was out after round 2.
Very true.
So we were both close, but not quite there.
No, not at all. I don't think many people picked Matt Pritter, so great achievement from him. Let's get to the next one. Club champion, who's going to take out the Merritt Murray medal next year?
I'm going Big Matty Leuenberger this year. I think good pre-season, hasn't had one for a couple of years. Who do you think, mate?
I'm going to go to win his second, Tom Rockcliffe. I didn't edit that, just putting that out there. That's
that was well done to Dom there. And what we're quickly learning here is that whoever I pick, I'm just putting an injury curse on them. So it's Louis and Gaz I've put out of commission.
Well, please, we're not going to do tips next year at this rate.
Well done to Dom, got one up there.
All right, and we'll wrap up with where the Lions will finish this year.
I think Brisbane will finish about 12th again, and I can just see a very similar season to last year. I think there's just a few clubs around that mark that are going to be hard to climb over. Do you think they'll go forwards in 2014, Dom?
I do, but only marginally. So I'm going with 11th. Well, we both ended up a bit wide of the mark there.
Yeah, we weren't quite on the money there, that's for sure. But
no.
Again, less the injuries. I think the forecast for Brisbane changed very, very quickly early in this season. So, but anyway, we were both wide of the mark there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think I win this year, 1-0.
Yeah, Dom won this year quite comfortably, I think.
Well, it has been a great year of the Fancast. I think that wraps up most of what we're going to do. We might come back to chat a bit about trades. Draft. There's not much to touch on.
Not a lot to talk about, is there? Pick 67, and
not a great deal.
That's about it.
But as I said, we're also hoping to get maybe 1 or 2 special editions in with various people, interviews maybe towards the end of the year. We'll see how we go with them. Until then, though, this is the Brisbane Lions Fancast. Hope everyone enjoys having Dane Beams along, and we'll chat soon.